know about you, but when I encounter a persuasive message, I'm pretty critical. And I start looking at every detail and the words that are used and the context in which they're using those words. While other people I know just pay attention to the catchy song or the flashy slogan or the person delivering the message. And they don't really break it down as far as I do. Now, I've always thought that that was just because I'm a communication professor, and of course I'm going to break those things down. But I've looked into the research a bit more, and that's why we are here today to talk about Elaboration Likelihood Model, because it is going to help explain why some people look at every detail and some people just pay attention to who the speaker is. Welcome back to Communication Campus. Welcome back, everybody. Today we are breaking down the Elaboration Likelihood Model of Persuasion. And this theory helps us understand how people process persuasive messages and why some arguments create a lasting impression and others just kind of go in one ear and out the other, and we're lucky if they've made any kind of impact in the short term. So persuasion, we have to remember, really depends on how much we elaborate or think really carefully about a message. And there are two primary routes to persuasion. And I like to kind of think of them as the front door and the back door of our brains. So the central route is going to be through the front door. It's careful, thoughtful evaluation of arguments, right? Now, the peripheral route is going to be the quick judgments that are based on cues other than the message itself. And I kind of think about this in terms of, do I see the persuasion coming? So if it's central and I can see it coming, it's going to be right in my face. And so since I know that I'm trying to be persuaded, I'm going to be really, really critical of it. But sometimes there are things that I'm not overly critical about that still have an impact that kind of slip in the back door. And I don't really think about them most of the time because it's not something I really connect with. So I just kind of am like, oh yeah, that might be interesting. And if it's something that sticks with me, it just kind of slips without me really thinking about it. So let's talk about this a little bit more. Central roots require motivation. We care about the issue. So in many ways, this has salience to us, to use another communication term. And with this motivation, we use our ability to process that information. Now, again, I have a lot of background in persuasion and criticism, so I have a great deal of ability and skills of things to look at and be really critical of what I'm seeing. And this is going to lead to long-term attitude change because it's based on some strong arguments. I can see how those arguments are being made, and they're convincing because it's something I connect with. I'm taking the time to really investigate and examine what's happening. And because I'm doing that, I'm spending all this time on that persuasion. It's likely to have a much deeper impact on who I am and the ways that I think. So, for example, I like reading science. I love reading things about cognitive science and interpersonal neurobiology. So, when I'm reading this scientific evidence, I'm gonna really evaluate and see how they're doing it. And if it aligns to my anchor that we talked about in the previous episode, if it aligns with the things that I know and I believe, then it is going to have a much longer impact because it's going to really feed the things that I already think about. Now, the peripheral route is used when, we might not necessarily connect to it, but we're really lacking either or and our motivation or ability. So for me, it would be I'm lacking the motivation to really investigate and take a lot of time with it. So I might pick up little pieces and, okay, whatever. But it also may be that you don't have the ability. You don't know what to look for. And that's why in communication, we want to teach you how to do that analysis. So if we don't have the ability to do that real critical analysis, we don't know what we don't know. And we might not know why something is bothering us, as opposed to those of us that study this can kind of pick it out pretty quickly. The peripheral route also relies on cues like attractiveness, credibility, the number of arguments, and not really the quality. So it's more about the quantity. How many times have I heard people talk about this thing? I might not have the ability to break down that speech, but is everyone talking about it? Do I think the person who's speaking is credible? And we see this honestly a lot with with politicians and politics right now. We're not necessarily analyzing exactly what is being said, but people have opinions about the people saying the things. So we often see that this leads to temporary or unstable change. We're not really doing the hard work, so we're not really building much of a foundation. So, an example of this might be buying a product because a celebrity endorsed it. We might not be overly happy with the end product, but that celebrity endorsed it and we thought it would be a good thing. All right. The factors that are really influencing this, again, as I mentioned, is going to be motivation. Do I care about the outcome? If I don't really care that much, okay, fine. I'm not going to really be motivated to closely examine that message. I might just kind of toss it in the back, whatever. Our ability. Do we have the time? Do we have the knowledge to even focus and evaluate what the message is saying? Does it have personal relevance, that salience? Because what's most relevant to us is going to motivate us to really think about what people are saying in terms of this persuasion. And lastly, our distractions. We are more distracted than ever these days. And I honestly think, in some ways, especially from a political front, that's on purpose. The more distracted we are with everything that's going on, the less likely we are to really critically examine what is being said to us. If it is said in a way that is confusing and we're not really feeling confident in our ability to pull it all together, again, we're not going to spend that time. So we might simplify it, pare it down, and just throw it in the back and see if it sticks to that peripheral cue. Now, the elaboration likelihood model helps us design persuasive messages for our different audiences because, again, if we know our audience and we know what they're motivated by, we can design the message and strong arguments that will quickly attach to the things that they are motivated by. For example, if I were a mother and I was going to write a speech for other mothers, there's certain things that I might say. I might talk about the safety of children because that's probably something that a mother would be really concerned about. Now, I'm not a mom, I'm a dog mom. So if you say anything about my dogs, you're probably going to get my attention. But knowing our audience and knowing what will they be motivated by and what will they take their time to really pay attention to and dissect versus what are they less invested in? Peripheral cues like credibility or presentation style are going to matter more in things that they're really not interested in. I've got to get them interested in a different way. But I want you to remember the central processing does lead to lasting change, and peripheral persuasion tends to fade. I tend to forget what's happening with that. It might come back in the end, but for the most part, meh, I'm probably not going to remember many of the details. So, to sum it up, the central route is deep processing and leads to long term change. Peripheral route is surface level. It's processing that creates only short term shifts at best. It's really important as understanding what we are motivated by and what we have the ability to determine. Those two things are going to have an impact on which route we choose to take. Thanks for joining me in this episode of Communication Campus. I'm your host, Dr. Malynnda Stewart. And in our next episode, we are going to take on yet another major persuasion framework, cognitive dissonance theory. Until then, remember, persuasion is not just about what you say, but it's about how your audience process it. We'll see you next time. And until then, keep communicating.